The Mercury7 by Meris. Here it is. Probably at this point, the top dog in the reverb world. I'm going to give it that. From Los Angeles, California.
Our favorite pedal builders from straight up down the road in Los Angeles, California.
Yes.
Meris, most famously known
For the Ottobit.
for the Ottobit, soon to be the Mercury7.
Inspired by...
Blade Runner.
Yes. Inspired by Blade Runner. We were told that several times by Angelo and Terry. They were definitely pushing that into it. And I've seen that movie. It's a dark, futuristic movie. This has sounds that have that articulated inside.
Harry Ford.
Harry Ford.
Yeah.
Who's Harry Ford?
Harry Ford.
He wrote that movie?
Harrison Ford.
Oh, Harry Ford. Yes, yes.
So they said that the whole thing was like they were running a lot of synths through this reverb, and that like having all the inspiration through the movie and the soundtrack and all the weird visuals of it, and it totally hits on all those levels for sure.
And this is something that I just recommend that you're going to watch what we're saying about it, but you should go to their website. You should check it out, read it, because there's a lot in this pedal. It's not just these knobs here, 6 knobs and 2 switches. It's secondary functions like the Ottobit. It also has back here, look at that, there's a line synth level, so if you play synth through it, it's going to sound better in the synth. If you're playing guitar or bass through it, line level. You, of course, can throw a mic through it.
At the core, It is a reverb pedal with a couple of reverb options, a plate and a cathedral. So the cathedral's a little bigger. But the craziest, coolest thing about it, in my opinion, is the pitch. There's some pitch vector shifting that you can throw over the top of it. One of the secondary functions for this is the attack, which is rad. So you can have it kind of swell into these like awesome, just crazy, verbed out, pitch shifting sounds.
Guess what one of my favorite is?
A hidden function on that thing.
Yes. So in the high frequency, when you hit the secondary function, turns this into vibrato. And I love vibrato. I have a ton of them in this room. This one sounds rad. The other thing is, I'm the dude who plays bass and loves low end, and I live over here in the pitch vector, the low end, and I get those big swells that you'll hear that will vibrate your room. Probably you'll start getting scared that you're going to blow your heads or your speakers.
What's cool about that is it is a reverb for bass players or for guitar players, because they have the low frequency and the high frequency options. So if you're playing bass and you're doing some low end shit, you want to crank that low frequency and kind of dial out the highs, and then you're going to get those rumbles, and vice versa with a guitar. Or if you want dark guitar, you bring in the low frequency, or if you want it more shimmery, pitch vector that shit up, and then dial in the high frequency.
So the nerds out there want to know, is it MIDI? Yes, it's MIDI. Can you use an expression pedal? Yes, you can use an expression pedal. Is there stereo input? Yes, there is. So there's all these other things in this that we personally don't jump into, but I will tell you, this has everything you need in a reverb. I don't think there's another reverb that is like loaded up like this.
Not yet. I haven't seen anything that has this many options. There's 3 different functions of these knobs, because there's the secondary functions, then there's global settings, and there's so many fun things to get into, which it's like you could lose, tens of hours like getting deep into this thing. So that's always really fun, like when someone comes out with a new pedal and it's just like, oh my god, there's just right out the box, you plug this thing in and you get amazing sounds. But then when you dig deeper into it, and you actually start tweaking with some of those like global settings of, trails or how you want the expression assigned, there's like so many crazy things you end up doing, and it's so unassuming looking, which is rad. And it's a small footprint on your board. You don't need like, it's not a massive shape, it's this compact little size, and that's a big deal, especially when we're talking like, real estate on a pedal board. And it just fits up so nicely.
Look at that.
Right next to the Ottobit.
It looks like synth modules. Well, that's where they came from. But the company came from synth modules, but now they're doing foot pedals. I hear they have some other stuff coming, which we'll get soon. But we're talking Mercury7 right now.
Okay, so you know, functions, you got your space decay, you got your modulate, mix, high frequency, low frequency, and your pitch vector. Like we talked about, all these have the secondary functions. We'll go over those. On the back, you got your standard input, left and right, for stereo outs if you're into that, which you can adjust that in the global settings, expression pedal / MIDI, then kind of like your line level stuff, TRS stereo. So there's lots of options. Again, there's kind of like the hidden stuff. There's a bunch of stuff under the hood with all the Meris things.
Here comes Juan's favorite Mercury7 sound. It comes from the secondary function like we were talking about. So you basically hold that alternate button right there down, and then you turn the high frequency and it gives you instant vibrato. So when I go on, it should be vibrato. So I love vibrato. I have so many vibratos in this room. Old, vintage, new. I love this one. And then kick in a little bit more low frequency, but I want to drop it. It says here we have like octave down, but then this is pitching it down. So it should go down. Hear it going down, baby. So I play bass, so I want it to go down there. And look at that sucker trail. The TV show Lost, I was a huge fan of, and whenever the smoke would come in, you'd hear stuff like the high trails or that low end stuff. So here, let me hit it again. All that stuff. And then if you go up, it's more of that. There it is. That's Lost right there. And then right now I'm on Ultra Plate. It'll even be more drastic on Cathedral. That's getting radical. I'd rather go this way. Let's go down to the octaden. I mean, I could just write soundtracks all day long. I'm going to tighten up the space.
The first thing I did when actually Terry came over here and showed us the Mercury7, I don't know why I was drawn to this, but so there's this swell button, right? And the swell attack time can be determined through the secondary function of this pitch vector knob, I guess the 5th knob. So I think I have it set, I don't know, but we'll get to that. We'll get to the secondary function in a second. But the first thing I did was, I was like, ooh, swell, that's pretty cool. And the swell kind of reacts with the decay. So my whole thing was, I wonder what would happen if I set the decay to 0. So basically it just sounds like this when it's on. Without. So it's very subtle, right? Because the decay is set to 0, and we're on the Ultra Plate too, so it's like a really mellow sounding reverb. But then using the swell to blast the decay up at the same time. And so that was the very first thing I did. I'll show you. And it was just funny because even Terry and Angelo, the dudes who had designed it, they were like, whoa, we hadn't even thought about that. And I was like, yeah, that's what's up. So anyways, this is what that sounds like. I thought it was a pretty cool sound. So it just has that really quick like release, which I thought that was a really neat thing. Let me, it's pretty bright. I'm going through JC120, but I'm gonna try and like lessen that brightness. So I will crank the low frequencies a little bit more on it. Let's see if that does anything. Yeah, it makes the top end a little less chimey. Hear that? There you go. It's kind of drastic. Bring this in. So that's on the 5th setting, as you can see on the pitch vector, which I'm all about the 5th. Anytime someone has a 5th freaking harmony, I'm all about that. The shimmer, you'll recognize the shimmer sound. So let's go off, let's get off that 0 decay just so you can kind of hear it, I guess more kind of traditional sounding. So no pitch right now, pitch is off. Also, the way these knobs are set might be different than what you're hearing because we may have been tweaking on the secondary settings, right? The secondary function of the mix knob is the actual level of the pitch vector. So right now, if I hold my Alt button and I turn the mix all the way down and let go, my actual reverb mix is still going to be the same, right, as it was before, but since I turned it, it looks like it's down to nothing. So there's a little bit of a learning curve with that, but it makes sense after you do it a couple times. Just to demonstrate the actual knob, I brought the pitch all the way down. So now let me go back to shimmer. When I turn this on, we should hear reverb, and the pitch is activated, but since the mix is down, you shouldn't hear anything, right? Right. Okay, so kind of a useless little trick, but I just want to show you what the knob actually does. So now I'm going to hold it and I'll bring back in the actual pitch, and I'm going to go 100%. So now we go to this, to the shimmer. We should hear the shimmer. Tons of shimmer. Okay, so let me bring the space back down. Let me show you what these other guys do. You know, the 5th, the octave, the low octave sounds rad when you have the low frequency cranked and then the high frequency down a little bit. So then, now let me demonstrate this swell, because you can hold this, right, and it'll kind of like jack up the decay. Basically, it's kind of an automation of like just cranking it when you actually hold the swell down, but you can engage swell on or off. So I'm going to show you what it sounds like to swell, and I thought this is a really, really cool thing. Okay, so the secondary function of pitch vector, like I talked about earlier, is the actual attack time. So usually right in there is when I notice it, kind of like 11 o'clock. So I'm going to reset these guys, like I said I always do, just kind of 12 o'clock, modulation at nothing right now. I'm going to bring the mix all the way down, so I could get just a neat volume swell sound, no reverb, right? Very responsive to your attack. So now, this, just to demonstrate, I guess, the knob a little more, let me go a little bit more up on the swell time. Here it's a little slower. So then you bring back in the reverb. Let's pitch vector off, and we'll get some cathedral. So let's see. You know, it's basically the classic, you know, doing an actual, let me turn swell off. It's the equivalent of doing this, right? I thought this is a really interesting sound too, the pitch down. I think this is when you're kind of getting into like the futuristic, like kind of Blade Runner-y type stuff. So you actually hear it kind of like descending, which I think is pretty neat. If I turn the pitch down, it sounds exactly just like dipping your whammy bar. Dipping your whammy bar and just getting super out of tune and just bumming everyone out. Well, why would I do that when I can just set this to pitch down, right? Kind of like being seasick, but you're like space sick. So you're on like, you know, a boat that's just floating through space and you're just puking over the side. So that's the pitch down. I thought that was super cool. Emulates that kind of like really, really like kind of gentle dip. Really cool. And then the pitch up is kind of like a familiar sound that you'll recognize of just that like slowly ascending, also kind of nauseous. I guess that's the thing about the Mercury 7. It's so pretty and like sounds like so lush, but there's some pretty nauseous sounds that you get out of it. So again, let's see, cathedral, decay up, here, whatever. Let me give you some modulation too now. It's time for modulation. And so now we're in pitch up. So now I'm going to set the swell time. Let's set it like a lot. It's kind of hard when you get past 12 o'clock, I feel like, at least with the guitar, because, you know, maybe the note starts to decay before it. So maybe if you had a compressor before this, or if you were doing the line in with a keyboard, you can get those really, really slow attacks to be a little more prominent. Let's see. So this should be super slow. Back down. You can actually kind of like go between your pitch vector options when it's decaying and kind of holding itself out, which obviously you could do that with an expression pedal too. Right now I'll just show you kind of I'll kind of tweak through it. I'll start on the shimmer, the really high guy. So then here's using that swell again to kind of push the decay, which is a really, really cool sound. Chaotic, just like chaos, symphonic, just destruction. Pitch down. Pitch up.